Ever since Mark Carney popped onto the political scene, he's been doing impossible things one after the other. So today I'm going to map out all of those things, not necessarily to show people just how smart and strategic this guy is with the help of the Liberal Party, but just how easy it is for whatever you want to call it, whether that be the deep state, the elite, the powerful people behind the scenes. Mark Carney is a perfect example and embodiment of how they made it so easy to ascend anyone they want into power and completely capture the hearts of the people, even if it's someone who they haven't ever even heard of or who doesn't relate to the common person and who hasn't even lived in the country for literally years and over a decade. So the Liberals under the Mark Carney just secured a majority government through floor crossing, which, by the way, is literally unheard of. This is the first time this has ever happened in Canadian history. And now they've reached 174 seats, giving them the ability to pass any law first stage of the debate. So the only thing that stands between them and passing a law is essentially the Senate. Partly the reason why I'm making this video is because there's a lot of merit behind this idea of two wings, one bird across the West. Basically the belief that all major parties are controlled by the same people in the background and they all share the same objective, essentially. I never really put much thought into this idea before, but honestly, after mapping out Carney's ascension to power, I'm starting to see it. Many people are trying to make sense of these recent events, and the conclusion really is that the game is rigged and the winners are chosen by the elite. Who that elite may be is still very questionable, but I've seen a lot of speculation, but we'll just leave that for another video. So, a study by the Media Ecosystem Observatory on social media fueled conspiracy theories noted a rise in several narratives spreading, including media elite collusion, election fraud, and the deep state, giving people the feeling that they're playing a game that they literally just can't win, controlled by forces beyond their reach. So let's look at Mark Carney's rise to the Liberal Party leader, then Prime Minister, and finally a majority government through floor crossing to understand why people believe this whole game is completely manufactured. Let's start with the Liberal leadership race. It was called after Justin Trudeau had over 10 years severely damaged the Liberal brand and reputation. Abacus polling from January 19, 2025 showed Liberal support at an all-time low point, suggesting they would only get 20% of the vote. Conservatives would get 46%, NDP would get 19%, based on a sample size of 1,500 Canadian adults. At that moment, a Liberal minority government, let alone a majority government, seemed completely out of reach. It seemed completely impossible. What followed was a shift in tone. Blame for policy failures and scandals was increasingly placed on Trudeau, and the pressure seemed to lead to him stepping down. Carney then entered the race, and against long-serving MPs, quickly became the front-runner despite never being in politics before, which once again has never happened. He just spent over a decade outside of Canada serving as governor of the Bank of England from 2013 to 2020, and then a UN special envoy and chair of Brookfield Asset Management from 2020 to 2025. Through all of this time, he was living in the UK. Despite this, he comes back to Canada and wins the Liberal leadership race and becomes our Prime Minister. Now, to be fair, a scenario like this has happened before in Canada. When you vote, you don't necessarily vote in a leader, you vote in a party in Canada. So if you vote in a government and the leader you like resigns, the party still remains in power. And in 2003, a very similar thing happened to Paul Martin. Jean Chrétien resigned as leader. Paul Martin ran in the leadership race and won, and then became the prime minister without an election. And then later he called an election in 2004 and won a minority government. Basically just exactly the same thing that Mark Carney did, except he won a lot less seats. But that's only ever happened once. The other two times a leader has resigned and was replaced, the replacements lost. Kim Campbell in 1993 and John Turner in 1984. So this scenario is still very rare, and winning the election after calling a general election is even more rare. But wait, there's more. What Carney did that has never happened before is become the winner of a party leadership race with no prior experience as a politician after not being in the country for literally a decade. Not only that, but did so with record support, winning every single one of the 343 ridings, including those of his opponents, who have been over their ridings and winning their ridings for years. Now, let's look at the 2025 election. The Liberals secured 43.76% of the vote and 169 seats, just short of a majority. The Conservatives won 41.31% and 144 seats. Really makes you wish that we had a proportional representation for voting. If we did, the Liberals would have only won 148 seats and the Conservatives would have won 140. But that just goes to the flaw in the first past the post system. The reason why this is insane is because this comeback is literally unheard of. A roughly 24-point swing from 20% polling figure in January to nearly 44% in the election is literally unprecedented. Then, after the election, the Liberals moved to secure a majority government through floor crossing. Once again, unheard of. Starting to see the pattern here? Reports surfaced of efforts to recruit MPs from other parties. Conservative MPs were coming out and literally admitting that they were being approached by Liberals. 5 MPs crossed the floor and 4 of them were from the Conservatives. Historically, large-scale floor crossing is rare. It has happened before, yes, under John A. Macdonald and Jean Chrétien, but it's definitely unusual. Overall, liberal governments have benefited more from floor crossing, getting 26 seats compared to 15 for conservatives, which is very strange considering something that I'm going to share with you next, but we'll get back to that. But just look at some of the people who crossed. Marilyn Gladue, for example, she supported the trucker convoy, conversion therapy for homosexuals, and anti-abortion legislation. This is the last person anyone would expect to be a floor crosser. Just doesn't add up. Now, back up to liberals mostly enjoying the privilege of crossing the floor and betraying your voters. In 2011, there was a law proposed, Bill C-306, which would require MPs who switch parties to trigger a by-election. It would have forced MPs to seek a fresh mandate before sitting under a new party. The Conservatives voted against it, 142 opposed, and only 2 voted in favor. The decision now has come back to literally bite them in the butt. Makes you wonder if the 2 wings, 1 bird narrative actually has some merit behind it. Now, there's a lot of impossible, rare, and unlikely things this Mark Carney guy was able to achieve seemingly very easily, all during a time when the liberal government is trying to pass some insanely intrusive and anti-freedom laws. Right after the unjustified pandemic, the huge waves of foreign interference, and many scandals, forcing a vaccine and the increase in organized crime, and it all seems to line up perfectly, almost like it was calculated. We've had former CBC reporters saying that they were told not to interview people from certain political parties. The introduction of hate speech and censorship, free expression, it's all happening at the same time. Either way, I think that even if it is all controlled by the deep state or whatever people want to call it, we all still have a duty to keep on saying what we know to be true and doing what we think is right. There's a quote by John Stuart Mills that goes, "If all mankind minus one were of one opinion and only one person were of the contrary opinion, mankind would be no more justified in silencing that one person than he, if he had the power, would be justified in silencing mankind." And I think he's absolutely right. Ideas need to be debated, not silenced, because eventually silence is treated as consent, whether you like it or not. Anyways, thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed this, and subscribe for weekly videos and breakdowns. Leave a comment down below what you think about Mark Carney and all of this, and him easily being able to do all of these impossible things back to back. I'll be reading all of the comments, and until next time, peace.